by Peter Lane and by the appeals court. And the minute Callagy said that, the trial would be over. I didn't have to defend. He wasn't going to challenge the merits. I didn't have to defend. I didn't have to present any evidence. It was over. And Peter Lane should have stopped the trial right there, and then the minutes would have been something like $100. But the thing that Rudolph said was that Lane, in essence, denied my right to appeal. That's pretty bad stuff. That's pretty bad due process violation. Pretty bad in what is left of the United States of America and what is left of the Constitution and the New York State Constitution. And so when Rudolph said that he had denied your right to appeal, I have to explain to you that the appellate court will not take an appeal unless there's the minutes from the lower court. And when Rudolph said that, I said, huh, that's a big thing. Remember that forever, that Peter Lane denied my right to appeal. There's only another couple minutes of this.
Okay, now I sum up with this. That Peter Lane defied you. He defied you in all kinds of ways. You told him to give you the $3,000. You told him that he had jurisdiction over Charles Dolan. He didn't do either one of them. He did finally say, yeah, you're right, Judge Rudolph. I do have jurisdiction over Charles Dolan. He finally said that. Okay, but he defied your orders. He did not do a thing that you told him to do. And I would point out that Robert Callagy, the lawyer for hire in this case, comes from Rye. And it's all fitted in nicely with all the things that go on in Rye, which I'm sure you people are aware of. I thank you very much, and thanks again on such a bad day that you showed up for us. Columbia County. Now take you to choo-choo.
Well, what that was the last thing about was Rudolph solicitude for me to have a safe journey back to Columbia County. And he referred to the driving. And I told him that I took the choo-choo. There was something in there I wanted to tell you about. What was it? Just a second, let me turn off the recorder, see if I can remember it. Did you think that was interesting? That was Glendora before the appellate term Supreme Court, State of New York, in White Plains on Valentine's Day. I can't find it, folks, whatever it was. But I will tell you this, this is the first time in open court that I ever called a liar for hire. I have called a liar for hire for many, many years now. I would say since 1993. And this is the first time in open court I call them what they really are. A lawyer is a liar for hire. Now, so here I am in White Plains, and my Amtrak ticket is on the Hudson line, and the White Plains line doesn't go through Yonkers. So how am I going to get from White Plains to Yonkers with this much slush, snow, and sleet on the roads? And nothing's going, of course. I went over to see my friend Brad Sachs, and I saw his friend Kevin. Kevin let me use the telephone. I called Suzanne, who was going to try to follow me and go to 140 Grand, but there was no way that their car could manipulate the slush and slipperiness. So I called her and told her what I was doing, and I called Mary, my neighbor to the north, who's so brave, so courageous, and so kind, and told her that I was going to come back on get the 309 in Yonkers, or somehow or other if I could get to Yonkers, and I would be in at 4:45 p.m. in Hudson. And I asked her how it was up there, and she says 2 to 3 feet, still coming, and sleet and rain. And so then Kevin let me use the phone to call a cab, and actually the man said he would come. He says, now you be out there front, don't you keep me waiting. So I was out there in front, and I gathered up. I filled my pockets with Marie's candy. She has 5 or 6 bowls of candy in Brad Sachs' office, and I filled my pockets with that. And I hadn't eaten, of course, since yesterday, because I usually don't eat until, well, sometimes it's 8 o'clock in the evening. 1 meal a day. You heard about the man who said he ate 1 meal a day? It started at 9 in the morning and ended at 8 o'clock at night. So I went down there, no cab. So here comes a car through the intersection very, very slowly, and there's very few vehicles around. And I walked out into the road, and he rolled down the window, and I said, $10 if you will take me to the White Plains Railroad Station. And he started moving his briefcase out of the passenger seat, and he says, I'll take you to the White Plains Railroad Station, but I won't take $10. He was a sweetie, and very good-looking man. He worked for an eye doctor, and he lives in Ossining. His name's Michael. Thank you, Michael. And he took me. Remember, my Bible passage for that morning was, serve the Lord your God with your lips and with your heart. And I certainly stuck to that all day. And where there was gloom, there was a chance to bring cheer. And where there was weariness, there was a chance to bring refreshness. And where there was over seriousness, there was always a chance for a joke. So there were a lot of laughs all the time, all the way around with everybody. The whole day of it, yesterday and another day today, the 14th. And I got to the White Plains station, and I said, can I go to Croton and then pick up my train there? Go north to Croton and pick up my train there, Croton-Harmon. We don't go to Croton. This is a different line. We have 3 lines, New Haven, the Harlem line, and the Hudson line. I wanted the Hudson line that went up the Hudson River. He says, you would have to go down to Mount Vernon West and get onto the Yonkers line there, of the the Hudson line there. Well, that didn't sound so good. Or he says, you can go over here, and he pointed to 2 blocks over, and there's a bus there that goes to Terrytown. Gets you there in 10 minutes, and you can get on Terrytown and get off at Croton. Well, I was carrying, 2 big litigation bags, and plus my shoes, because I had to bring the boots. I had to carry the boots the first day there wasn't any snow, but am I ever glad my neighbor made me aware to do that. So I had the 3 bags, and I just didn't want to go through all that slush and that sleet and that rain and whatever. First it was rain, then it was snow, and then it was sleet, and then it was a mess on the ground. So I said, you know what I could do? I said to the ticket agent, I could take a train to Manhattan, and then that would be south. and then I could take a train back up to Yonkers, get off at Yonkers, and then use my round-trip ticket going back Yonkers to Hudson. Yeah. $4.85, and I forgot to ask for senior citizen, to Manhattan. When I get to Manhattan at Grand Central, people are sitting all over the floor. You can hardly find a place to walk. Their trains have been canceled, and they're sitting in groups of 5 all over the floor, eating out of styrofoam packages. And I didn't know where the ticket booth was, and I had to ask for that, and I didn't find it after I asked, so I asked again. Then it was on a different floor. And I found the ticket booth, and I said, ticket to Yonkers. And she said, are you coming back? And I said, no, I'm never coming back. I said, please don't take it personally, but I'm never coming back. And that ticket was $5 and a quarter, I believe. Why would a ticket to Yonkers be $5 and a quarter when a ticket all the way from White Plains to Manhattan was only $4.85? Railroad, you do awful things with your prices, with your tariffs. And so, as soon as I got the ticket, I went over to the information booth, and a very good-looking young man in a cute little uniform, and he never seemed to talk to you, but he had all the answers. And he was sort of like a robot. But he was good-looking, he was fixing his glasses. And then he said, track 38 at 158, and it was 140, and I didn't have time to get any of that delicious food that they have in Grand Central Station. They have sinful treats. So I decided to, and it's a good thing I did, how long you walk on that ramp getting to the train. So many cars you had to pass. Not 10 or 12 cars before you found one with a light and a door open. And I got in it, and then I broke the fast. It was 1:45 p.m., first time I'd eaten since yesterday. And I ate all that Valentine candy from Marie's office. And the man who announced the first stop, he was very, very good. His announcement was so good. So I told the girl conductor when she came by, first of all I asked her, I said, isn't it nice they have girl conductors now? And then I said, do they have girl engineers? And she said, yeah, they have a few. And so I said, that man who did the announcement was very good. He should have a TV show. Ask him to come and see me. So I did. And he was a nice-looking young man. And he said his name was Michael Duffy. That's a good Irish name. And I said, you should have a TV show. And I gave him my card. And I said, what's your hometown? And he says, Poughkeepsie. And I said, well, you go to that square, Poughkeepsie, whatever they call it, the square where Time Warner is, and you tell Rob there that Glendora sent you and that you want a TV show. You want to know how to do it. He says, yeah. I said, yes, and they can't say no. Anybody can have a public access show. They cannot say no. It's federal law, state law, and municipal law. Oh! Then I did my Med Create. That's a meditation. Not the morning meditation. The first one you do first thing in the morning. This is in the daytime. And I did my words. Let's see, what were the words? 51 to 60. Abyss is immeasurable space. And a chasm or void. And I thought of all the moral and intellectual depths that I had seen in the courts. The next one is abyssal, and that's unfathomable, pertaining to the deep waters, pertaining to the bottom waters of the deep sea. The third was adept, which is fully skilled, well-versed, proficient. And the next one is adequate. Did you know adequate comes from the Latin word aequus, which means equal? If you're adequate, you're equal or commensurate to the requirement. Isn't that nice? Ample sufficiency. completely able to attain the proposed end. And the next one is academic. That's a good one. Academic is not expected to produce a practical result. So we apply that to all English majors, such as myself. And then a cappella means unaccompanied, and accede is to give your allegiance to. And acceleration or accelerate is to quicken the normal pace of something, and acceleration due to gravity is 32 feet per second per second. That means that the acceleration increases 32 feet per second every second. So there's a second, you're going 64 miles per hour, and the third second you're going what? 96 miles per hour or something? No, 96 miles per second. I told you that joke about the man jumped out of the airplane and he pulls a ripcord and it doesn't open, the parachute doesn't open, and he sees a man coming up as he's going down, and he says to the man coming up, "Do you know anything about parachutes?" And the man going down says, "No, do you know anything about gas stoves?" And then the last word in that one is accentuate, and that means to emphasize or intensify. And even though we don't have any courts left, at least I did accentuate justice. I took all that we had, it's all that we have left, and I did our part. So that was coming back on the train to Yonkers. I talked to a man from Red Hook, and this old lady, who was not dressed for it, had no boots at all, just flimsy shoes, and she had only one glove. So I said, "Look, I have another pair of gloves," and I picked out these white gloves. I said, no, she didn't want to take them. Finally she took them. I said, "Here's another pair of white gloves," because I had on my winter gloves, and I had the boots. And so I helped her get on to the 309, leaving Yonkers for Hudson. And then when she got on the train, I gave her my quilt coat. It's really a quilt with sleeves in it, and put that around her feet. And I bought her a cup of coffee. And she had some injury to her eye. She had fallen in the parking lot of Walmart, and she had a bad injury to her eye, and I think that's why she went to Manhattan to get treatment. She's all alone. You shouldn't. And she was all set to get a ride from Hudson to Catskill across the river where she lives over the Rip Van Winkle Bridge, and then that fell through because her son's friend's car was stuck. He couldn't get it going. So she didn't have a ride when she got to Hudson. And I did. It was Mary, my neighbor. But finally she came out and she said her son would see that she got home. And now listen to this story. Here's Mary. She comes down in the four-wheel drive. And it is snowing. Hudson hadn't done a thing to plow the streets. Nobody had done anything to plow Route 9, and Route 9 is a big road. Route 9 is the Albany Post Road from Manhattan. And it wasn't plowed. You could hardly see where the road was. She came down 10 miles to pick me up in that kind of stuff and take me home 10 miles. How is that for bravery and courage and kindness and Christian living? How is that? A neighbor do that for you? She also helped poor Bob, who got off the train before me and found out that there weren't any cabs, there weren't any buses. The place was barren except for the snow. And she gave him a ride up to Route 9, and he said he was going to be all right. Well, that's the end of the tale. It took 32 hours to prepare for this oral argument. 10 minutes. It took 28 hours to get there and get back. And the post-trial work on it, not post-trial, the post-oral argument, has taken 6 hours. All these hoops you go through trying to find justice. And it isn't there. But you do the best you can. It is now 12:30 p.m. on February the 16th, Friday, 2007, Anno Domini, the year of our Lord. I want to leave you with the solution to happiness. More than anything in the world, I want you to be happiness. More than anything in the world, I want you to find the inheritance that God has left you. It's not easy to find it. You've got to work at it. And you've got to work at it doing 3 things that I can think of, and maybe people can think of more. But number 1 is to spend your alone time with God the first thing in the morning. Number 2 is to stay with God, and at every 15 minutes rejoice about something. I rejoice that we had a good time talking to you about this, and I know that I will hear from you. The number of in-calls is prodigious. I know that we can rejoice at this beautiful snow, this beautiful white. You couldn't get any more white than this. I rejoice that the birdies are out there feeding what I've got. All I can find for them is corn chips, but they seem to love them. There's a lot of crows, there's a lot of starlings, and these cute little gray, black winter birds that are so fearless. And I got some out at the west door for them too. South door, excuse me. That's what I rejoice about. And the third thing, alone time with God, first thing, rejoice every 15 minutes is 12:30. And in between, have pure thoughts. And the pure thought for that trip on Valentine's Day was serve God with your lips and serve God with your heart. And did it ever pay off? Can you imagine going through all that unscathed? Can you imagine that? It really worked. God on your lips and God in your heart. And the one for today is from Colossians 3. I use the Daily Bread, the Radio Bible Ministry. It's about keep your mind on the things that are in heaven, and keep your mind off of the things here on earth, where a moth does dissolve and rust, does tarnish, and thieves break in and steal. Keep your mind on the things in heaven. We're going to close now with the jokes. What we do in this life echoes in eternity. The jokes. 2 guys, Pete and Mac, made a pact that the first one who died and went to heaven would come back and tell the other one if they had baseball in heaven. Matt died first. He came back and he said, Pete, they got baseball in heaven. Pete says, hallelujah, praise the Lord, baseball in heaven. Matt says, but I got bad news too. Pete says, what's the bad news? Max says, you're pitching Friday night. The doctor says, I have bad news and very bad news. And the patient says, what's the bad news? And the doctor says, you have 2 days to live. And the patient says, what's the very bad news? I forgot to tell you yesterday. You can buy cookies at the store. You can bring them home and you can put them in the oven and you can burn them just a little bit, and then everybody will think they're homemade. Oh, there's some more jokes here, covered up by all of this litigation. Computers are in the Bible. Oh yeah, computers are in the Bible. Eve said to Adam, do you want an apple too? There's a drink that's named after the economy. You know what it is? A drink named after the economy. It's called soft. Why do firemen have a Dalmatian dog? So the dog can go ahead and find the fire hydrant. I met Bob Hope on several occasions, and he was always very, very nice to me. And as a kid, I used to collect pictures of Bob Hope. And I had scrapbooks, this big, folks. In those days, that's how big the scrapbooks were. And I had 4 of them. And I must have had 2,000 or 3,000 pictures of Bob Hope that I collected from magazines and newspapers. So he came to town, and I went to see him, and I offered him these pictures. And he said, yes, I would like them. And he said, there was a man in front of him, part of his entourage, the man in front of him, and he says to me, give them to Bill Faith. So there we were, faith, hope, and charity. The Japanese man went to the eye doctor, and the eye doctor says, you have a cataract. And the Japanese man says, no, I have a Rincon Continental. The announcement at the church was they were going to start up a men's study group. And I said, wonderful, I'm going because I've been studying men for 78 years. Why couldn't Mozart find his teacher? Because he was Haydn. What do you call a person who doesn't get angry? A nomad. This man was telling Franklin and me that he and his wife went down to the store and brought a brand new computer, and they brought it home, and their son, who was a computer expert in Boston, down around the Boston area, came home, and he said to them, where did you get that old thing? It was the next day. This little boy was at the end of his driveway down in Texas trying to find homes for his puppies. George Bush came by and he says, what kind of puppies are those? And the boy says, these Republicans. And George Bush was exhilarated. He went home and he told his wife. Next day, 2 of them came back. And the wife said, what kind of puppies are those? And the boy says, these Democrats. George Bush says, what? Told me yesterday they were Republicans. And the little boy says, today they've got their eyes open. You should pray for the public. Glendora has completed 4,550 TV shows.